Close your eyes and imagine. It's the late 1960s in California. The air is filled with change. Rock music, protests, and the hope of a new generation. People gather in parks, lovers meet under the stars, and young couples escape into the quiet of the night. But in the shadows, something darker stirs. A killer. A man who doesn't just take lives but also writes letters, mocking the police, teasing the press, and daring the world to stop him. He calls himself the Zodiac. For more than 50 years, his identity has remained a mystery. He wasn't just a murderer. He was a manipulator, a game player, someone who wanted attention as much as he wanted blood. And the scariest part, we still don't know who he was. The Zodiac story begins on December 20th, 1968, on a lonely stretch of road near Vallejo, California. Two teenagers, David Faraday, 17, and Betty Lou Jensen, 16, went out on their very first date. They drove to Lake Herman Road, a popular spot for couples. But sometime that night, a car pulled up behind them. Shots rang out. David was shot in the head. Betty Lou tried to run, but was shot 5 times in the back. Both were killed instantly. The police searched for motives. Maybe jealousy, maybe a random madman. But the case grew cold. No one could imagine that this was just the beginning. Fast forward to July 4th, 1969. Fireworks lit the sky as Americans celebrated Independence Day. At Blue Rock Springs Park, another young couple sat in a car. Darlene Ferrin, 22, and Michael Mageau, 19. Suddenly, a car pulled up beside them. A man with a flashlight approached. Without warning, he opened fire. Darlene was killed. Michael, though shot multiple times, survived. But here's where things turned chilling. Just 40 minutes later, a call came to the Vallejo Police Department. A calm male voice said, "I want to report a double murder. If you will go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you will find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." It was the killer himself confessing. This was no ordinary murderer. This was someone who wanted credit, someone who wanted fame. A few weeks later, on August 1st, 1969, 3 newspapers in the San Francisco Bay Area received handwritten letters. Each was nearly identical. Each began with the chilling words, "This is the Zodiac speaking." For the first time, the killer gave himself a name, Zodiac. But these weren't just letters. Each contained 1/3 of a mysterious cipher, a puzzle made of strange symbols. He demanded that the newspapers print the cipher on their front pages, or more people would die. It was a threat, a game, a taunt. The newspapers published the ciphers, and soon, a school teacher and his wife cracked it. The message read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest. Man is the most dangerous animal of all." The Zodiac had revealed himself not just as a killer, but as someone who saw murder as entertainment. On September 27th, 1969, the Zodiac struck again. This time, it wasn't in the shadows of a car. It was broad daylight at Lake Berryessa, a beautiful lakeside spot north of San Francisco. College students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were enjoying a picnic when a man approached them. He wore a bizarre black hood with a white cross circle symbol, the Zodiac's personal logo. Around his waist was a holster and a knife. He told them he was an escaped convict who needed their car. But then he tied them up. Without warning, he stabbed them multiple times. Brian survived. Cecilia did not. And before leaving, Zodiac scrawled a message on Brian's car door with a marker, the symbol, the dates of his previous murders, his signature. He wanted the world to know it was him. Just 2 weeks later, on October 11th, 1969, the Zodiac struck again. This time, his victim was Paul Stein, a San Francisco taxi driver. Late at night, Paul picked up a passenger who directed him to Presidio Heights, a quiet neighborhood. But when they arrived, the passenger pulled a gun and shot him in the head. The killer then calmly wiped the cab, tore off a piece of Paul's bloody shirt, and walked away into the night. A group of teenagers witnessed the murder from a window and called the police. But here's the most haunting part. That same night, the Zodiac mailed another letter to the newspapers. Inside was the torn piece of Paul Stein's shirt, proof that he was the killer. He mocked the police, bragged about his escape, and threatened to kill school children. The city of San Francisco was gripped with fear. Parents kept kids home from school, police patrolled buses, and the Zodiac laughed from the shadows. The Zodiac's crimes were terrifying enough. But what truly made him infamous were his letters. He wrote over 20 letters to newspapers and police between 1969 and 1974. In them, he bragged about his murders. He sent more ciphers, some of which remain unsolved even today. He mocked detectives, called them pigs, and dared them to catch him. In one letter, he claimed he had killed 37 people, though only 5 murders have been officially confirmed. Each letter was signed with his chilling symbol, a circle with a cross through it, like a hunter marking his prey. Over the decades, police have investigated hundreds of suspects, but no one has ever been charged as the Zodiac. The most famous suspect was Arthur Lee Allen, a troubled man who matched several witness descriptions. He was questioned multiple times, but evidence against him was never strong enough. DNA and fingerprints didn't match. Other suspects have included career criminals, ex-military men, and even school teachers. Yet none could be proven beyond doubt, and so the Zodiac remained free and silent, or so it seemed. One of the Zodiac's most enduring puzzles was his ciphers. The first one, as we said, was cracked. But others, like the 340-character cipher sent in November 1969, stumped experts for decades. It wasn't until 2020, over 50 years later, that a team of amateur codebreakers finally solved it. The message was chilling. I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner. Once again, he was laughing at the police. Even from history's graveyard of unsolved crimes, he was still taunting. By the end of 1969, California was living in fear. Couples avoided quiet roads, taxi drivers were nervous to pick up strangers, and the newspapers were flooded with his cryptic letters. The year is 1970. By now, the name Zodiac strikes terror across California. Newspapers print his letters. Police departments are overwhelmed with tips. Citizens live in fear. And the killer himself? He seems to be enjoying every minute of it. Because this wasn't just about murder anymore. For the Zodiac, it was about power. The power to terrify an entire state. The power to make the police and the press dance to his tune. The Zodiac's letters kept coming. Each one stranger, darker, and more threatening. In one, he claimed he would shoot out the tires of a school bus and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out. This horrifying threat caused parents to panic. School buses were escorted by police cars. Officers rode along to guard children. In another letter, he included diagrams of bombs he claimed to have planted. He described how he would blow up buses or entire neighborhoods. Investigators scoured the hillsides, but no bombs were ever found. Still, the threat was real enough to keep the public in constant fear. The Zodiac had mastered something few killers ever achieved. He didn't just kill, he controlled people through words. On October 27, 1970, the San Francisco Chronicle received something unusual, a Halloween card. On the front was a skeleton and the words, "From your secret pal." Inside, another skeleton held a pumpkin. Written in his hand were the words, "Peekaboo, you are doomed." It was signed with his symbol, the crosshair-like circle. The card was eerie, even playful, but it carried the same dark message. The Zodiac was still watching, still taunting, still alive. Officially, the Zodiac is confirmed to have killed 5 people and injured 2 between 1968 and 1969. But the truth may be much darker. He claimed responsibility for as many as 37 murders, though police could never confirm them all. Some believe he began killing long before 1968. Others think he continued long after 1969, simply without writing letters. For example, Cherry Jo Bates, an 18-year-old student in Riverside, California, was stabbed to death in 1966. Some evidence suggested Zodiac may have been responsible. Other unsolved murders across Northern California in the 1970s have been linked to him by amateur sleuths. But without hard proof, the true body count of the Zodiac remains one of the great unknowns. Over the decades, hundreds of suspects have been investigated. Let's look at the most notable ones. Arthur Lee Allen, the most famous suspect, a troubled man with a criminal past. He was identified by one surviving victim, Brian Hartnell, and even owned a Zodiac brand wristwatch with the same cross-circle logo. But DNA tests and fingerprints didn't match. Rick Marshall, a projectionist who lived near one of the murder sites. Some thought his handwriting matched the Zodiac's letters, but evidence was thin. Lawrence Kane lived near several victims and had a history of stalking women. Again, circumstantial evidence, but nothing solid. Earl Van Best Jr., named in a book by his own son who claimed his father was the Zodiac. The book stirred headlines, but experts remain unconvinced. Gary Francis Post. In 2021, a group of independent investigators called the Case Breakers claimed Post was the Zodiac, citing hidden messages in the letters, but law enforcement never confirmed it. The frustrating truth is this: every suspect has a piece of the puzzle, but none fit the whole picture. Perhaps nothing has fueled the Zodiac legend more than his ciphers. He sent 4 in total. 2 remain unsolved. The most famous unsolved cipher is the Z13, only 13 characters long. It was sent along with a note demanding that the police publish it, saying, "My name is," followed by the code. Was it really his name, or just another trick to keep the world guessing? To this day, no one knows. One of the greatest breakthroughs came in December 2020. A team of codebreakers from America, Belgium, and Australia finally cracked the 340-character cipher, which had puzzled experts for over half a century. The decoded message read, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner." Even in a message from half a century ago, the Zodiac's voice still dripped with arrogance. He wasn't afraid of punishment. He welcomed it. This is the question that haunts investigators and true crime enthusiasts alike. How could a man commit such bold crimes, write so many letters, and still vanish without a trace? Part of the answer lies in the times. The late 1960s lacked the forensic tools we have today. There were no DNA databases, no advanced surveillance, no digital trails. The Zodiac also struck randomly. His victims had no clear connection. He left almost no physical evidence, and his habit of inserting himself into the investigation through letters allowed him to control the narrative. In short, he was one step ahead. More than 50 years later, the Zodiac remains a cultural icon of mystery and terror. He has inspired movies like Zodiac 2007 and countless documentaries, books, and podcasts. But beyond entertainment, the case remains one of law enforcement's greatest frustrations. The FBI officially closed its Zodiac case in the early 2000s, but local police still keep files open. The killer's letters, ciphers, and threats still sit in evidence rooms waiting for a final answer. And maybe one day, with advances in DNA and technology, we'll finally know his name. What makes the Zodiac so terrifying isn't just the murders, it's the way he played with fear. He turned murder into a performance. He wrote letters like a playwright. He designed ciphers like a puzzle maker. He threatened children, buses, entire cities. He made himself larger than life. And because he was never caught, he lingers. Not just as a criminal, but as a ghost. A reminder that sometimes evil can remain faceless. The Zodiac Killer has been silent for decades, but his shadow hasn't faded. His letters still whisper from old newspapers. His codes still challenge us. And his name, chosen by himself, has become immortal. He once wrote, "Man is the most dangerous animal of all." Maybe that was the truest thing he ever said. If you were drawn into the mystery of the Zodiac Killer, imagine the hundreds of other unsolved cases hiding in history's shadows. Subscribe to Shadows Untouched and join us as we bring those mysteries to life, one story at a time. Because the past still speaks, and some voices refuse to be silenced.